seats up here, get a cup of coffee, but come on in. Want to get started? Hi, I'm Nikki Tate.
Hi, I'm Kathy Moore. Nice to meet you.
Well, you didn't have a name tag on, so.
I didn't have a name tag? Why didn't I have a name tag?
Nobody has a name tag.
Nobody has a name tag today? Where'd you get that from? Nobody has a name tag? Is that right? I thought I saw some out there.
If they have a name tag, they brought it with them.
Oh.
We're trying to promote networking this morning. A name tag makes it a little too easy just to look at someone's name and not get that handshake going. So, there's our anchor there. So, are you going to call in the World Series?
Baseball?
Baseball. Do you know why Cinderella is not very good at baseball?
No.
She always runs away from the ball and she has a pumpkin for a coach.
Oh. You mean like the Chicago Cubs do?
Like the Chicago Cubs, yes. Okay. All right, we're going to get started, and we would ask everybody to move up to their seats this morning. As we said, I'm Mindy Tate, Executive Director for Franklin Tomorrow. This is Kathy Moore.
I'm Kathy Moore, President of Franklin Tomorrow, and thank you so much for coming. I know it was dark when I left my house, and I'm going to start a petition that we not have daylight savings time, or that we join the Eastern Time Zone. I was in Gettysburg last week, and I enjoyed the Eastern Time Zone. It was quite lovely.
We've had a lot of requests also for brunch with the mayor, as opposed to
Brunch with the mayor. Yeah, I think that might have some ring to it, actually.
We'll do that. Well, we couldn't do breakfast with the mayors without our friends from First Farmers Bank, and you can see all of our sponsors behind us, and we really appreciate their support for what they've done. And we have had a lot going on in the last month, including our Mayor's Cup Golf Tournament, and we want to thank Volker Incorporated and a host of other sponsors, including Highwoods, Turner Construction, Ovation by Southstar, Full Service Insurance, Civil and Environmental Consultants, Williamson Medical Center, and American Mail. And that was a pretty fun day, I heard, Kathy. I think there were some pictures from that day. Mayor Moore, wow, is he styling in those orange knickers or what?
I started to buy some because I thought he was probably going to set a trend.
Yeah, Paul Pratt had a good day out there on the course. Paul John and David Cardokas had a good day on the course. And Mayor Moore's always, it can be hard work being a mayor, I think. I'm not sure. There he is on the back of the cart. And he always finds a way to be happy, as we know. So there is being happy with the all-female team, of course. And somebody actually won the inaugural Mayor's Cup, and that was one of the winners was Craig Holland from First Farmers Bank, and that was not a setup, we promise you, okay? There were 3 flights, it was not a setup. But we had a great day at Vanderbilt Legends on October 8th, and we'll be doing that again next year, right?
Yes, we will. We will.
Again next year.
And we also just had chili cook-off. If you missed it, it was a fabulous day with all 40,000 of our friends in downtown Franklin with all their dogs and their children and their pumpkins and etc. And I've never seen so many dressed up adults as I did that day. It was sort of interesting.
And congratulations to my friend's house for winning the People's Choice category there, and to Brian Irvin for winning the Judge's Choice. We did have a great day, a lot of fun on that, and we want to remind you, it is the last few days of early voting right now. Early voting goes through Thursday afternoon at 6 o'clock, and I've got a little tip for Tuesday's election, Tuesday, November 4th election. There are a lot of important issues on the ballot this year, including the constitutional amendments, as well as our state and national officials. We want to ask you to go vote. But I'll give you a little tip about early voting. If you go after 4:30, much less of a line, and they're open until 6 o'clock, but it goes today, tomorrow, and Thursday. And please go and be an active citizen and vote in the upcoming election.
And I would also add that the Secretary of State has done us all a great favor and has created a great app called Go Vote TN. You can download, and it has all the ballots on there. It tells you where to go for your regular polling station when you put in your address. And it has a great explanation of those kind of confusing 4 amendments to the Constitution that we're voting on. So take a look at that. I'm hoping that that's a precursor to us being able to vote with our iPhones from wherever we are. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Nice change, yes.
Nice little change, yes.
And so this is actually breakfast with the mayor as opposed to mayors.
This is the Memorial Rogers Anderson chair. We were trying to drape it in orange because he's not here today, and we have a suspicion he's somewhere foreign.
He's somewhere in East Tennessee, which I'm sure that he's wearing orange in some way. I'm sure of it.
Yes.
But we'd like to ask that Franklin Mayor Ken Moore join us on stage and tell us a little bit about what's going on with the city.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for being here today. And I do feel a bit naked without Rogers up here because he and I enjoy each other's company and enjoy working together. This is a great program we're going to have today, but before we start, I just wanted to kind of maybe do a few quick announcements and a couple of things that are happening in the city. And the first is a great article in the New York Times recognizing Franklin, Tennessee. So if you haven't seen that article, Google the New York Times in Franklin, Tennessee, and I think that you're going to be very impressed with the good comments from that. One thing that's on many people's minds now is the Ebola epidemic that's occurring in Africa, and we seem like we're a long, long way from the crossroads of Western Africa. Actually, there's been a couple of potential cases in Knoxville and Memphis, I think we've seen in the news. And I think the question you're probably asking is, well, this is Franklin, Tennessee. What are we doing about it? And we are doing something about it. Todd Horton is in charge of our emergency preparedness for the city. And they've been updating all of our procedures and policies for Ebola. And based on CDC's recommendation, and also making sure that we have the appropriate equipment, which we do. Another little news tidbit is that we were just recently re-informed that we continue to be a tourist destination. We're number 6 in the state of Tennessee as far as a tourist destination, bringing in over $382 million a year. And finally, I wanted to mention a few initiatives that we are doing. You know, we are a very blessed community. We're growing very rapidly. We're the 14th fastest growing city in America with a population over 50,000. And one of the things that we've placed a lot of emphasis on as a community is making sure that we're doing good long-range planning. We're looking 25 or 30 years down the road in all aspects of city government. And there are several important initiatives that are occurring right now. One is the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, which you can go to the city website and view that and find out how we're planning transportation for the future and also how we're linking it to land use. Okay? The second initiative that I need to inform you about is soon we'll be seeing a similar update for all of our parks. I'm not going to release too much information other than just say very soon we'll be starting to talk about revisiting the comprehensive plan for our parks. You know, we have 704 acres of parks and 16 parks in the city of Franklin, so we're very blessed in that particular area. Another area of concern to many people has been housing in the city of Franklin. And we've been talking about it for a long, long time. And so one of the initiatives that we have had is a housing commission that's been advising the board on how to improve the housing choices in our community. But we're going to have a community conversation on January the 29th, a housing summit. So if you have some interest in that, feel free to reach out to me and give me your name. You can just email email me, and I'm easy to find, or you can even call me and let me know that you have an interest in maybe attending that. And then finally, if you've noticed, our square's been naked for a little while. The cannons are gone. And the good news is that thanks to some leaders in our community that wanted to make our square more authentic, the old concrete supports for the cannons are gone, and we're now going to be replacing those with actual authentic replicas of the carriages that hold the cannons. So October the 29th, I understand that 2 of the carriages are going to be delivered, and then shortly thereafter the other 2 will be delivered. We'll be able to celebrate Veterans Day on November the 11th at 11 o'clock. And I think those initial carriages will be dedicated that day, and then we'll be ready for the sesquicentennial on November the 30th also. So that's just a real quick update. So I'd like to invite our guest today, Commissioner Susan Whitaker, to come up, and Julian Bibb, and Eric Jacobson, and let's sit down and have a little conversation this morning. Welcome. And good morning, Rogers. And I'll be handling the questions today, if you don't mind. So this is an important time for our community. We're a community that's been very blessed and has paid a lot of respect to our past. Our catchphrase is historic Franklin. And so I'd like to start out with Commissioner Whitaker to tell us how we're leveraging that historic Franklin at this time.
Well, you sure caught the wave at the right time. That whole cultural heritage travel thing is just growing by leaps and bounds across the world, but especially in the U.S. And I would say that because we have the tourism product, that's just the lingo, but it basically means this is where we live and it's real, and people want to come and enjoy this. They want to experience this. When we talk about a cultural heritage traveler, we're talking about our history, but we're also talking about the music. We're also talking about the people that are here, where they came from, how their faith is affected, the way they go about their business, how their lives have been influenced by the history that's happened here. And I know of no other place, and I'm kind of biased. I live here. I chose to live here when I came over from East Tennessee 12 years ago because I just fell in love with the downtown, and I thought these people really understand the jewel that they have. And little did I know what was afoot as far as even taking that to another level and being able to create some cool things. I've been very blessed to work for 2 great governors, both of whom business-minded, saw tourism as an economic driver, and gave me a lot of leeway to develop a marketing plan that could really kind of, whatever I needed it to do, be able to use those things that were going to draw people here. And right away, of course, you look around and you always look for what you have that's authentic, and when you see the music and the heritage, and then again, what I didn't know about but quickly found out about when I moved to Middle Tennessee was about the Civil War history that was just so amazing here in the entire state, but particularly in Middle Tennessee and here in Franklin, and started looking at putting together a sesquicentennial commission way back in, I think, 2004 and 5, looking at putting together the Civil War Trail using some TDOT enhancement grant funds, a couple $1 million that I didn't have in my budget, but we were able to leverage. And one of the things that I've seen even grow beyond that, because we have those niche travelers, that's what they want to do. They want to come, they're looking for those Civil War sites. It's a narrower niche, but it's very deep. They're going to seek them out. Then you have people that are coming and they're just interested in the area that you have. They've heard about the New York Times article. What a gift. Sky Magazine, from Delta, talking about what a gem this place is. When people see that, they're generally looking for a place to be entertained, to have a lot of good things to do. And when they see what those pieces have to offer, they're going to be experiencing all of those. And I don't know, just as kind of a little break and maybe wake you up this morning, I've got a little video I'm going to play right now. This is a part of a marketing cooperative effort that we do with the state, and we looked for those communities that will give us the best ROI. We came to Williamson County, and we asked them, would you like to participate in this? It's called the 1 Minute Vacation. We did 24 of these with 11 different destinations. This one comes from Birmingham, and we aired this in Birmingham. But we particularly were looking for those things about Franklin that would be the most just attractive. And what we ended up getting was a tremendous spot that's got great results. It's played in the spring, and the background of that is it's actually a Knoxville, Nashville group called Apache Relay, who is just fantastic. So if you will roll that, it's only a minute long. I think you'll enjoy it.
I see the sun, I see the stars of June. I feel the air, I hear the scream of the wind. I'd ask everyone I know just where I am, but I don't care. I want to be lost, find something started again. Tear up the map, 'cause I need directions. I want to be free, I need some time to clear my head. If I can.
That campaign did about 1.3 million click-throughs, and of the people that clicked through, 1 million of them stayed for the whole 60 seconds. So we know that people love to come to Tennessee. They're interested in what's happening here. We're kind of the rock stars out there right now, and one of the reasons is, like the show or not, Nashville TV show has put us on the map, not just in the long-haul markets now. When I travel, and I go all over the country, people, when they see that I'm from Tennessee or Nashville, they're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to come there, blah, blah, blah. And the Walt Disney Company just decided to do a tour that's going to start in 2015 to Nashville. And we know when they come to Nashville, they start coming to all of the areas around here. So we see such great potential. We believe that what you've done as far as not just having that heritage, because it's here, it's authentic, but burnishing that, making that very accessible to a traveler, being welcoming. I would say if I can get somebody here one time, they're going to come back numbers of times. They're going to become our greatest evangelists for how wonderful this area is. Hence the New York Times article, which was somebody who was visiting with a family member in this area and just fell in love with it. And her final words were how beautiful it was, just taking a back road. So it's not a hard place to sell. We do have a lot of competition. We were able to get up to $16.7 billion just for 2013. That's the latest number. You mentioned over the 382 million just here in Williamson County. And we're seeing, again, for the 8th year, over $1 billion in state and local sales tax revenues. I'm very grateful that the governor gave us an additional $12 million over 2 fiscal years to take that marketing effort out further, and he proposed that, but I'm also very grateful to our legislators who approved that, because, they can only, the governor can only propose something. They're the ones that have to decide. They have to weigh everything that's out there in front of them. But they see that this is a great investment, and it's because we have places like Franklin. And I'm looking forward to that Civil War. We've got the sesquicentennial event coming up over at the factory. Our sesquicentennial event sits right in the middle of a lot of things that the community's been planning for a long time. But we'll be over at the factory starting on that Friday morning and going for that full day with a number of events, looking back on a project and other things. Some great speakers. Damien Shields from Ireland is coming in to talk about Patrick Cleveland. So we are pretty excited about what's happening with that.
Great. And I love the 1 minute visit to Franklin. That was pretty super, wasn't it? Yeah. Rogers just nudged me and he said, Ken, you didn't recognize that you have elected officials here. And so, thanks, Rogers, for reminding me. So, we know we have some aldermen here, and I saw Senator Johnson. So if you're an elected official, raise your hand, and thanks for being here. And so many of you we appreciate their leadership in getting us up to that, this celebration we're going to have. There's been a lot of movement on my board, particularly in supporting it. So I'd like to go to Eric Jacobson now. Eric, you play a pretty prominent role in our community as far as talking about the Battle of Franklin and the sesquicentennial. Tell us what's happening.
Oh, there's so much happening. But I have to say, just watching that 1-minute video, that's amazing. That's why I moved here. I started traveling here almost 20 years ago, and I just fell in love with Tennessee. And obviously, the history was something that I was very, very passionate about. But it was this place. It was the landscape, it was the weather, it was the food, it was the people, it was everything. And this just is such an amazing place. But boy, are we going to be busy over the next few weeks. We have a lot going on. The two primary events I think I should focus on is the weekend of the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. We have the state event that Susan mentioned, and then the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Franklin reenactment, which will unfold on the Eastern Flank Battlefield Park on Saturday and Sunday, the 15th and 16th. We'll be expecting several thousand people to attend that each day. I know a lot of folks in the community have been buying tickets to that event, but we've had a huge number of folks from far outside, even the confines of Tennessee, who will be attending that weekend. And then the culmination of the sesquicentennial year really is going to be the days right after Thanksgiving, the 28th, the 29th, and 30th. Which are normally very, very busy times for us at the historic sites. In fact, the day after Thanksgiving is traditionally our busiest day of the year, believe it or not. I think there's a lot of folks in town who can't take their families much longer after Thanksgiving, so they have to come out to the historic sites. But the 30th, of course, is the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Franklin. And that day, I've made a conscious effort as the person who is so involved with the sites on a day-to-day basis to have that be a commemorative event. There aren't going to be any major events other than the illumination. It's going to be a very quiet, somber, and reflective day because that day changed the history of this town in ways that I think even folks like me can never really fully comprehend. I was just talking to someone before we got started about our annual candlelight tour, which will be in mid-December, to think about how Franklin was suffering even weeks after the battle had ended. But November 30th will be quite a day, and I encourage everyone, it's a Sunday, so come out if you can. The homes will be open for regular tours throughout the day, but at 4 o'clock, to mark the 150th anniversary to the moment, church bells in downtown will toll at the Presbyterian, Episcopal, and Methodist churches for 5 minutes. And then at the Carter House, Mayor Moore will be speaking. I'll have a few words. And that ceremony will conclude in about 10 or 15 minutes. And then there'll be a second ceremony in Carnton at 4:45. Speaking there will be Julian Bibb, state historian Carol Van West. And I'll probably have a few just closing remarks. And then the homes, Carter House and Carnton, will open at 5:30 to the public, free of charge. And I'd ask everyone, if you have time, is to come out. And even if you don't go inside the homes, just walk the grounds. And just think about what was happening at that moment 150 years ago. So it's going to be an exciting month. November is going to be busy from start to finish. But it's going to be a very, I think, touching and moving time. But as you mentioned, how the city is planning out 20 and 25 years, that's our plan. In the end, this date, November 30th, 2014, is really just a date. It's an important anniversary, but it is just a date. There'll be December 1st and December 2nd. Pretty soon it'll be 2015. And we have huge long-range plans for the cultural history of this town and really of America, because this story is just one part in a 4-year stretch that redefined us that still impacts us to this day, a century and a half later. So come out and see us. I know many of you come out regularly, so come out again. Bring the family, bring the friends, and support us as we move into the next year and you see the future of another battlefield park emerge along Columbia Avenue, which I think Julian's going to talk a little bit about, but exciting times ahead.
Great, what a great summary. I was reading recently about Franklin after the Civil War, and the comment was that the city was occupied for 3 years with federal troops. And it also mentioned that it took 120 years for the city to start to recover after the war. So, I mean, it's very significant. But there's some really significant things happening on Columbia Avenue, I've heard. So, Julian Bibb, welcome this morning.
Thank you.
Chris,
Thank you, Mayor Moore. There are exciting plans happening along Columbia Avenue. I want to step back and give this perspective on what has taken place over the past decade, actually. And I'm sitting here on the stage with three incredible Civil War battlefield preservation supporters, Eric and Commissioner Whitaker and Mayor Moore. And what has happened in Franklin has truly been transforming. It's a national story. I know that Susan speaks about it at different venues. I do, Robert Hicks does, Eric Jacobson does. There are a host of people who really have spoken. I spoke not too long ago at Gettysburg about the preservation efforts in Franklin, because I'm going to take you back to 2013 and bring you forward to Columbia Avenue. 2013, Franklin's battlefield was listed as one of the most endangered battlefield in America, because it had been largely developed over. There were Winstead Hill and Fort Ranger, Carter House and Carton were the main sites. And toward the end of 2013, Franklin was removed from the list of the most endangered battlefields, not because of what had happened, that we're not on the list anymore, but not because of what you've seen today, but because the group that judged whether or not you were in an endangered battlefield or not decided there was no battlefield, so they took Franklin off the list. At the same time that happened, there was a beginning movement within the community to change that, to change the dynamic of that story. And that group started discussing it and brought in partners like the Civil War Trust and the City of Franklin and the state of Tennessee and a number of private contributors. They began to sell the story of reclaiming a developed battlefield and taking off of it the improvements that had been placed on the battlefield and returning the property to its 1864 condition. That first started taking place in 2004 and 2005 in a remarkable partnership between the city and the preservation groups to spend $5 million to reclaim what had been a country club. And that became the Eastern Flank Battlefield Park. And that became a national story. It first appeared, some of you all will remember, in 2005 when the National Geographic did an article on America's battlefields. And they were going to do a story in which Franklin was going to be part of that report because it was going to be the lost battlefield. And they sent a photographer down to take pictures of the Pizza Hut that was still on the battlefield. And they sent a writer, Adam Goodhart, to Franklin. And Adam's view was going to be to write the story of the lost battlefield. And I can remember having lunch with Adam, and Robert Hicks was at that lunch, and we told him that there was a different story he was missing. And it was the fact that Franklin was reclaiming its heritage. And he said, you all are great salespersons, but who's somebody else more objective? Who doesn't like what you're doing and who likes what you're doing? I'm going to go talk to them, but I've got to fly back to Washington tonight. So we gave him some names of people that represented different thoughts on that issue, and he went and met with them. The next morning he called us and said, hey, I'm still in Franklin. I get it. I get what's happening here. And that article really promoted the incredible drive that this community has had to reclaim its battlefield. The April 2005 edition came out. Franklin had more press than Manassas and Gettysburg and all those places you think of as being America's battlefield. When the article was released in Washington, there was a joint meeting of the geographic and members of Congress at the Capitol, and Franklin was invited to attend that meeting. And Franklin was the only group permitted to speak, and so there we were. At this point, I kind of felt like the freshman in high school who had been invited to sit at the table with the seniors in high school and wondering if we really deserved to be there. Well, we did. And time began to prove that story. And then tremendous support in this community, placing so far $12 million into battlefield reclamation. And you've seen the eastern flank develop. You've seen the city of Franklin take on Fort Granger, and it's in the middle of a sign interpretation project. You've seen the incredible stories about developing a battlefield. And then we turned our efforts to purchasing property along Columbia Avenue. And so the city bought the Pizza Hut and knocked it down. And preservation groups began buying up things like houses and the Domino's and the Strip Center and a construction office. And each of those properties have been purchased. And the retail Strip Center that sits right across from the Carter House, except for Domino's, now is vacant, and we're beginning the removal of those buildings. And the Domino's facility will be vacant by the end of the year, and we'll begin the removal of that facility. The house sites that sit behind that property, some have been removed and some are in the process of being removed. And then we're in the process of purchasing two properties immediately south of the Carter House, where the flower shop and another building that houses a nonprofit currently sit. And as we sat around thinking about that in a conversation with Eric Stuckey and others, we realized we've got 20 acres of contiguous property that separated only by Highway 31 that forms the basis of a downtown battlefield park. It will be an amazing recovery by this city of important battlefield property. And some of you all have seen the plans that have been drawn up by Ben Johnson that depicts that 20 acres as a park which can be enjoyed by the public. It will also feature Civil War interpretation. The Tennessee Civil War National Heritage Area under Dr. West has committed to provide the interpretation just like it did on the eastern flank. And this last week I was being interviewed by the CBS Sunday Morning News crew. They're coming to Franklin November 13th, 14th, and 15th, and they'll be filming and interviewing people in this community who are involved in the battlefield preservation effort. And they said, how did Franklin become the #1 battlefield reclamation story? You were the worst battlefield story a decade ago, and now you're the nation's leading battlefield story. And the reason that we've become that is because of collaboration among state government, city government, friends in Washington, the Civil War Trust, the American Battlefield Protection Program, the preservation groups in this community, and then people who live in this community who just come out and support what we do. They may be businesses. Many of you all have yourselves contributed money to these efforts. Eric Jacobson on October 16th held an effort at the Carter House to raise $150,000, and between businesses and local citizens, he raised $160,000. It was an amazing thing. So what really drives us is the energy that's in this room, the energy and commitment to tell America's Civil War story and to make Franklin a focus for that. It's been an incredible journey.
I think I've been to church. Wow, and what a great story. And, I know many of you in the audience have been very active in this initiative. And I think that you should applaud yourself for putting Franklin on the map as far as battlefield preservation. So, one of the things, we've got some great sites, the breastworks area, the Carter House, the Lowe's House, the Carnton Plantation, the Eastern Flank, Harlansdale, and Fort Granger, and so on and so forth. But one of the things that I've particularly thought was good is that the banners that are flying downtown, and where we've identified people that lived during that time and that have made a difference in bringing our community forward. Does anybody want to maybe just quickly touch on that, and then I think we'll probably go to some audience questions after that. Susan?
I'll quickly, because I will yield the floor to Eric, the real expert that's sitting here. I will tell you that you can tell from this Yankee accent, I did not grow up around here. I did grow up in the South Side of Chicago. And I did get here as fast as I could, but I will tell you when I came, I had no clue, really, what the Civil War meant to the South. Not at all. But it was about the people. And one of the things that and you touched on it quickly, Eric, when you said it really was where the current, the modern U.S. Nation came from. It's when we decided we were the United States of America. And it was a tragic time, it was a horrific time, but that's why it's so important to preserve these battlefields. It's so important to have these places interpreted so that when folks come here, they have an understanding of the people that were affected. With the Sesquicentennial Commission, one of the things we said, we wanted to tell the whole story. We wanted to tell the story of the people who fought, but also the people who were left behind, who all of a sudden the women that had to take over and do the jobs that they had never done. The kids that no longer had their dads around, or their older brothers around. How it changed a nation, but particularly in the South, what a huge, huge change, even to the landscape and to the environment. And so this thing has so many different facets of it. But for those people who love to travel, it is so crucial that they understand this is about the people that were involved at that time. This wasn't some nameless battle with just thousands and thousands of casualties. These were individuals who were passionate about what they were fighting for. They loved their land, they loved their families, they loved what they, and they fought valiantly, and they should not be forgotten. So I'm just so proud of the people in this community for doing what they've done, and you are a shining light to the rest of the country. They're watching you.
Wow, great comment.
I'll add this, the banners are incredibly effective, and Williamson County Convention Visitors Bureau and the Sesquicentennial Commission and the folks that came up with the idea of the banners and then making sure that they included more than military figures, it has been a remarkable success. And it is because of what Commissioner Whitaker was saying. It's the story of those people. One of the interesting, yesterday I was out at Carnton with a photographer. You never know who you're going to run into, because I ran into Mike Skinner out at the cemetery as we were filming, and Mike helped us get some of our pictures done. But the photographer was talking about the banners. He was talking about Franklin. He was talking about one of his relatives that fought the Mississippi troops in the Battle of Franklin, whose picture is over at the Carter House. And it's a similar story over and over, sitting there waiting for the photographer. I met 5 different groups ready to go into Carnton. They were talking about the banners, but they were from Minnesota and Illinois and Indiana. It was an interesting time. And I don't know if you all recognize this, but I have taken one of the banners and covered up the stakes in Harbison, sign on 604 West Main Street with one of the banners. And I get people coming to my office all the time asking me if I'm the headquarters for Civil War tourism. But those banners, because of that banner, they are incredibly effective. Eric, you had a lot to do with the banners.
Please.
Well, the banners they're indicative of what Susan and Julian noted. They were just people. And I think that's often forgotten through the lens or prism of time, as well as if you're studying an event like a battle with these massive armies and all the characters leading the armies and the casualties. And it's easy to forget that even among the soldiers, they were still just people. They were just like us. They just lived in a different time. Saw the world in color, they had families, they dealt with the same emotions that we do. Obviously they didn't drive cars and have cell phones, but they were just like us. And they were terribly impacted by this, whether they were soldiers or whether they were civilians. I think one of the greatest examples when we added Matilda Loos as a child. Imagine the impact of a child by this battle. And people ask all the time at Carnton, how were the children affected by what happened? We don't really know. The McGavick children, for example, never really said much, but how could they not have been impacted? How could your life not have just forever taken a shift left or right by what you endured? And obviously there were the characters to include like John Bell Hood and John Schofield. I mean, those are a must, as well as some of the other higher commanders. But Todd Carter is just trying to get home. He's a soldier. He's just trying to get home. And then the last one I really thought was a good bit of fun to add was Arthur MacArthur. And it's a story that most people don't know. I mean, MacArthur is 19 years old. I can't get my daughter to take out the garbage some days. And she's 20. And MacArthur is 19 and in command of a regiment of Wisconsin troops and nearly dies here. 20 years after the war, he and his wife had a son that they named Douglas MacArthur. And you see how history pivots on the slightest of things. And we made an effort to add that this isn't just, frankly, a white story about North and South. I think one of the soldiers who was added from one of the fellows who served in the United States colored troops, when people talk about liberty and freedom, this man was fighting for his true freedom, to be equal, to not be owned by another person. Mariah Reddick, who was the property of Carrie McGavick, and after the war was free, and lived a long life in Franklin. This was her community too. And to tell all of those stories, and that ties into why this is important today. This is the fabric of our country. It's where we were, it's what we went through, it's how we changed. Here we are 150 years later. And I've had the opportunity, as I know many of you had, all you have to do is travel around this planet. There are some really nice places. There are none better than this country.
Wow. Yeah. Roger's just asking me how much time we have left. 5 minutes. So thanks, Roger, for reminding me. Let's take some questions from the audience if we could. So we've got the experts here.
Raise your hand high and I'll come to you.
Mike Skinner. She's coming.
I know there are a number of people here in the audience who maybe hadn't had an opportunity to be part of this battlefield reclamation. I wonder if Eric or Julian could tell us if they'd like to make a contribution, how could they get that to you?
Well, I can start, you can finish. You can always call me. I might be harder to reach than the mayor is some days, but if you have my cell phone number or know how to call Carter House, or you can go to battleoffranklintrust.org. We have this convenient button that takes you right to PayPal. That's the easiest way. But truthfully, maybe the best way is to come out and visit the sites. Or if you have been out, just come out, we'll sit down and talk about the big picture. And really, for 20 or 30 minutes, sort of lay out the vision for what the next couple of decades are going to be. But be involved. I know that from some of the folks who are on the board of the Battle of Franklin Trust, and certainly some of the staff, but just folks in the community, this is about being part of something that's bigger than all of us. This is about being part of something that will outlive all of us. That this is our legacy. We have a chance to reclaim this piece of history, physical ground, but an intangible story, and have it in a place where it was not for so many years. And part of the long-term vision, and I don't want to eat up too much time, Julian can maybe chew up the rest. Here's the vision that I have for this story. That this is not about Carter House, or Carnton, or the Lotz House, or Winstead Hill, or Fort Granger. This is about Franklin. I want people to consider visiting this battlefield like they think about visiting Shiloh, Chickamauga, Gettysburg, Antietam. They're one-word names. To not just think about a particular site, but they come to visit Franklin. And by proxy, there's so much more that Franklin has to offer. That's the vision that I have. It's not about individual sites. It's about Franklin.
Well, Eric, so well said, and that is the vision. And the vision is catching on. Some of you know that the Lotz House is having a historian dinner where Ed Bars, who's the Dean of American Civil War Battlefields, is going to come be a speaker. That's a fundraiser for a variety of the efforts. And Ed Bars has been part of this story for quite some time. Recently, he had his 90th birthday party in Washington. And what he does with his birthday party is he selects a battlefield, a one-word battlefield, to be the recipient of the gifts that are made in his honor at his birthday party. And for his 90th birthday party, he selected Franklin. And they made a remarkable gift to the effort to buy the properties that we're in the middle of purchasing. And it is that vision that Eric's talking about. Those donors at the birthday party were talking about the Battle of Franklin, not sites, but the Battle of Franklin, the story of Franklin. And I think that is important for all of us to know, that we are in this effort to create the battlefield of Franklin. Getting involved in these efforts and making donations would be of tremendous help to us. And I've got to say that we get donations probably every day. And no donation is too small. We get $15, $25 PayPal donations, and we may get much larger donations. But it has been remarkable to see the number of folks in this community and outside of the community who have heard about what we are doing, try to help us make this a reality.
Well, have we got any more time, Mindy? One more question.
One more question. I have a question. Can you explain the economic impact of historical places in Franklin, not only in Franklin, but in this state, and what it does for us as a state and as citizens?
Well, as I mentioned, it's been just in 2013, the last number we received from U.S. Travel, $16.7 billion in economic impact for all of the travel. And we found when they do certain surveys, and U.S. Travel does, on the cultural traveler, people who come to Tennessee are 2 to 3 times more likely to visit a cultural heritage site. They're coming here because of the history, the heritage, and the culture, which includes our music, but it also includes just this incredible history that we have. That translates to dollars. When people come and they're visiting a battlefield, or if they're coming to see Carnton, they pay an admission fee, a gate fee, maybe to see the houses and take that tour. But they are staying places, they're eating places, they're going to other places in the community to shop. And so I like to put on my economic hat and say, it's nice to be part of the solution. Sales tax revenues are the engine for everything that we do with education and all the public safety and those kinds of things that we can't print money to pay for those. And the governor has recognized that. Governor Haslam talks about tourism as one of those places when he puts in $1, it actually is a $19 return. It's the biggest return. Part of it is because our sales tax is so high. I don't tell people come and hear that. But boy, when they come, they're smiling at you when they're giving you their money. So it's kind of a nice win-win for everybody, and then those dollars are available not just to support the attractions and support the places that they are, obviously it's so important to us with this kind of travel, but also all of those other important essential services. So great question.
It's great. Thank you so much to our panel, and thank you to Mayor Kenmore and for Rogers telepathically being part of today's event. I want to remind us, and Eric, I thought you might have said this, we're actually sitting in the middle of the battlefield. We're sitting in the middle of where men died and fought for what they believed in, and that's very important. I want to encourage you to be a tourist in your own town. As Eric said, the day after Thanksgiving is very busy at the local sites, but be a tourist in your town because there's a lot to learn here. And you can learn a lot by going to visit Williamson.com or battleoffranklintrust.org. And then if you want to learn about the events that are surrounding the sesquicentennial, you can go to franklin150.com and sign up for many of the events, several of which are free. The conference at the factory is free and it's going to be wonderful, and so please do that. And the Williamson County Library is here with their Battlefield book or Battle of Franklin book that we would encourage you to look at as well. This is our final of 4 Breakfast with the Mayors for 2014. In 2015, we're going to move to the first Tuesday of the month, and those are going to be February, May, August, and November. And this event is a great event for Franklin tomorrow, but it's because we have such a great committee headed by Elizabeth Mefford and her group, so please give them a round of applause for that. Community Church for being our host here this morning. So thank you so much and have a great day. And don't forget to vote.